Hi, I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm excited to talk about my favorite mechanisms, or really all the mechanisms in the new Ark Nova expansion, Marine Worlds. So in these expansion videos, I actually don't really talk about my favorite mechanism. I talk about a bunch of different things that come into play in the expansion and what I think about them. So let's look at some images on BoardGameGeek of what we can find in this expansion. So mostly it is a more stuff expansion. It's very easy to add in some more stuff. They use the expansion to replace some of the cards from the original game. That was fairly easy to do during our setup, and you only had to do that one time. Most of them were just for little clarifications. And you can see whenever you have an expansion card, thanks to this little seahorse right here. So this is one of the new categories of cards in the new expansion. You have marine animals. They're denoted by this icon up here, and they have different places where they can go. So you're not going to put a marine animal in the same place in a zoo where you might put a cheetah. You have to use special aquariums to put these animals. But one of my favorite mechanisms really in this, so I'm going to talk about some favorites here. One of my favorite mechanisms is this right here, this coral mechanism. This is a tableau building mechanism that I saw recently in a game called Knar, K-N-A-R-R. But this does it. Ark Nova Marine World does it in a really interesting way as well. So what this means is when you play the Ector clownfish, oh, that's German. This isn't the English version. So when you play this clownfish, you gain this benefits. You gain 2 appeal. And then from then on, whenever you play an animal with a coral icon, you gain that card's coral benefit. Let's see if we can find some other ones because they vary. Not only do you gain that card's coral benefit, you also gain every other coral benefit in your tableau. So let's see if we can find a few more examples of this. Here's all the core components here. I'll come back to them in a minute. Yeah, so here's that clownfish again. Let's see if we can find another one. So there are basically a bunch of cards in this expansion. Not a lot of photos on BoardGameGeek right now, surprisingly. There are a bunch of cards in this expansion that have that coral benefit. Not all of them, some of them. And so when you play it, you gain that card's coral benefit and every other benefit on a card with coral. And they're all different. They're not all 2 appeal. They can vary from card to card. Let's go back and look at that full component photo. So you can see there are some tiles. There's some new benefit tiles from the conservation track. These wooden tokens, they looked like something big was going to happen with these wooden tokens, but these are really just cube replacements for your player mat. So instead of using cubes on your player mat, you can use your player color of a specific animal here just to add a little bit of flavor to the game. Otherwise, they have no benefit at all, no special benefit. Obviously, there are new sponsor cards that are related to the marine animals themselves. And there's also a new tile type right here. You can see, and there's a new mat to go with this new tile type. This new tile type says that whenever you gain a tile of this type, you gain this kind of placeholder tile, then you also gain, what you actually gain permanently is one of these tiles up here. So these are tiles that say that you gain 1 research. You have an icon for a specific animal. So if you haven't been able to find a specific animal that you really need for one of the goals, for example, you can gain one of these tiles and just gain the icon for that animal. And right away, there's a little tiny icon here. You get to look through the cards on the deck until you reveal a card of that animal type, which I thought was really clever. One thing that's, I don't know if we'll see a better photo of it on BoardGameGeek, but you can kind of see it right here, is a little wave icon. This is one of the new mechanisms in the game, in the expansion, where whenever you reveal a card with a wave icon, you remove, so this is in the card row, the central card row on the board. Whenever you reveal a card with that wave icon, you discard the first card, the card that's been in that row the longest. You discard that card, shift all the cards over, and draw a new card. So this keeps the card row a little more, it moves a little bit more often. It refreshes a little bit more often, which I think is really helpful for a game where some people complained about maybe the card row stagnating a little bit. I think the key thing to keep in mind for games like this is that you don't typically want full card flushes, because a lot of players might be looking at those cards in the card row and planning around gaining them on their turn, waiting until they reach a certain point in reputation or whatever. They might be planning around them. So you don't want too many flushes. And so this wave icon, I think, is a nice compromise to that mechanism that sometimes it comes out, not every time. You don't draw it every time. And when you do, you're only replacing 1 card instead of the full card row. Also, I'd love to find one of my other favorites. So Coral is my favorite mechanism of the game. It's so simple. It's super easy to teach and understand. It's a great tableau building mechanism. Yeah, so these are in German, so we won't be able to see, or I won't understand the full effects of them. But one of the other great hooks about this game, actually, this card doesn't even belong here, but these cards, the action cards, one of the great hooks about this expansion are the action cards. So at the beginning of the game, in a game with Ark Nova Marine Worlds, you draft, you end up with you draft 3 total special action cards. And with those action cards, you choose 2 of them and you replace your core action cards with these new cards. And they are asymmetric. They are special versions of the action cards. So for example, I had a card that said, it was my association card. I had a special version of the association action card. And whenever I played it, I could discard an X token, one of the tokens that adds value to your action cards. I could discard an X token to gain $5 right away. So felt pretty powerful, something that I tried to build around a little bit. It made X tokens a little bit more valuable for me. And I had one other card, I can't remember it offhand, but everyone had a slightly different card like this. And not only were they different on the front, but they were also different on the back. When you flipped them over and upgraded them, they had a different back too, some different thing to go for. They were all more powerful, basically, than the original versions of these action cards, which makes the game, they were easy to add to the game, maybe not for a new player who doesn't understand what is better or what is worse. But for those of us who have played Ark Nova multiple times, it definitely added a nice little twist to the game to make them feel a little different, to give you this little different feel whenever you played these cards. I'm looking over my screen because I'm kind of curious what the German is saying over here, but I'll have to play it some more and play with my English version to see what the other abilities do. So yeah, I really enjoyed my first play of Ark Nova Marine Worlds. The game actually seemed to go a little faster than previous times I played Ark Nova. I don't really know why. I don't think anything really changed in terms of the speed of the game. Maybe those upgraded action cards did speed the game up a little bit because they give you a few extra powers. But yeah, overall, I really like these mechanisms, especially the coral mechanism, and the wave mechanism is very subtle, but I like that as well. And the new action cards that you can add in and have a little different feel every time you play. Let me know your thoughts if you have played Ark Nova Marine Worlds. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Or if you can think of any other games that do things like this, where they're changing out core actions with a little bit of asymmetry, or the coral mechanism. I mentioned Knar. There are probably other games that do that as well. Thanks.